Well, if it's not the statutory burden, the statutory requirement to pay the tax that determines who ends up with their price changing by more, what is it? It's our good friend elasticity. You didn't think we were done with elasticity yet, did you? Elasticity plays into this because it describes how much the buyers and sellers are willing to, or would change how much they bought as the price changed. So now look at the demand curve here and the supply curve, the original ones. The demand curve, can you see, is pretty flat compared to the supply curve? That means that our buyers have more elastic demand than our sellers have elastic supply. Our buyers then are more willing to change what they're doing. They're more sensitive to the price and hence will change their quantity more as the price changes than the sellers will. So as we think about who is going to pay fractions of this tax, we're going to be able to shove less of it onto the buyers because the buyers are more sensitive to the tax, more sensitive to the price change, and so will change their quantity faster. In order to have an equilibrium, we need that quantity to stay the same between the buyers and the sellers, so we're not going to be able to change the price on the buyers more, as much as we change it for the sellers. So to illustrate how this works, what I'm going to do next is show you guys a different market where I keep the equilibrium the same, I keep the supply curve the same, I keep the amount of the tax the same, hence shift the supply curve up by $6, the amount of the tax, but now I'm going to change the demand curve. I'm going to swing it around so it's more inelastic than it was before. It's steeper than it was before. Have a look at what happens to the equilibrium. Our equilibrium with tax now occurs here at a higher price than before. There's our new price that the buyers pay. It was $16 before, it was down here, it's gone up. And the price the sellers receive has now gone up as well because they're able to force more of that tax onto the buyers because those buyers are less sensitive to price. Hence, the sellers can afford to shove more of the tax onto the buyers who will continue to buy large amounts of this product even with a greater tax rate, or even with a higher price that they have to pay, rather. So here's a summary of those things that we just observed. At least the top two are what we just observed. The third one is an interesting one also. You may have noticed that the quantity didn't decrease by as much when we added on this tax, when the buyers were less sensitive to price. The quantity fell to 50,000 here with the original demand curve, but here it only fell to, whoops, that was a little wonky, looks like maybe about 56,000. And so that is another important observation about taxes and elasticity. Either of the demand or supply curves becoming more inelastic, less elastic, that's going to result in a smaller change in quantity and hence more tax revenue for the government. Then as a government, you're going to prefer to tax goods where the elasticity, either of demand or supply, is smaller.